Welcome to another session of Tools in Action, where we have a great chance to discuss directly with tool developers how to practically implement impact measurement and management for business. My name is Adele Wiman, and I'm in this session joined by Jon Lloyd, who is the Associate Director of Corporate Citizenship, who is also managing the LBG network, and we will be discussing the LBG model today with him. The LBG model is a tool for measuring the impact of business community investments and is one of the tools that our tool testers reviewed as part of the Global Value Project. After the session, I would like to invite you to have a look at the LBG model tool showcase for more insights into what the tool can do and the practical experiences of using it. And you can find that in the show floor of this virtual event. So let's start with our discussion. Jon, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. If you would like to just say a few words of what your background is and what keeps you busy every single day.
Hi Adele, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this session. Yes, as you say, I'm Jon Lloyd. I'm an Associate Director at Corporate Citizenship. Corporate Citizenship is a global sustainability consultancy, so we work with companies around the world on all aspects of social responsibility or corporate sustainability, whether that's measuring or managing environmental impact, whether it's developing corporate responsibility strategies, whether it's writing sustainability reports. We work across the board, and one of our key areas is community investment, and we work with companies to both help them develop the strategies for investing in the community, and we also help them measure both the contribution they make and the impact they achieve. One of the key ways that we do this is through our management of the LBG network, which is a global group of companies who work together to better manage and measure their investment into the community.
Okay, thank you for this introduction. So what exactly is the LBG framework and the corresponding tool? Why it was actually developed? For what purpose? What does it help companies really do?
That's a great question. Well, LBG is two things really. It's both a network and a framework, and it was developed by business for business over 20 years ago, so it's one of the longest established standards and tools in the CSR world, and it was developed to, I guess, address two things really. Firstly, it was to enable companies to better understand the contribution that they make to communities through their philanthropic activities, through their community investment work, through their employee volunteering, and so forth. So it was a tool to enable them to measure that effectively, but also it's a tool to enable them to compare and to benchmark. When LBG was started over 20 years ago, it was called the London Benchmarking Group because it was started by 6 pioneering companies in London, but now it's a global network of over 200 companies in every continent, and they are able to work together, learn from each other, and improve the way that they understand and assess their community contributions and how they can use that information to make more effective contributions going forward.
Given that it was developed 20 years ago, and some things have changed in the sphere of measuring, managing sustainability in business, how do you see the LBG model comparing to the tools that are available today?
Well, the LBG it doesn't stand still. It's an ever-evolving framework. When it started, it's fair to say that the focus was on the input side of measurement. It's about getting a set of robust and agreed principles for assessing what a company contributes to the community, how to evaluate employee volunteering time, how to value in-kind contributions of product or services and so forth, as well as cash. So getting some agreed principles for how, firstly, what counts as community investment, and secondly, how you evaluate that. And then over the years, other elements have been brought into focus, or sharper focus, through the framework, beginning with outputs, understanding some basic assessment of how many people might benefit from community activity, how many organisations might be helped, and so forth, and then on to the impact side of community investment. So really understanding better how do those people that a company reaches benefit from their involvement, how do employee volunteers benefit, and how does the broader business benefit, and also touching on various other initiatives as they come on board. So we're currently looking at how to integrate and reflect more, I guess, forward-looking activities, perhaps better termed or well known as sort of shared value or social innovation projects, which have a kind of the dual purpose of both having a social purpose and a direct business driver.
Yeah, that's the current LBG model as it stands now. It is explicitly focused on helping business measure the impacts of activities that are outside of business operations. Is that correct?
Yes, to a large degree, although LBG recognises there are sort of three streams of corporate community contributions. There are charitable gifts. There's sort of the sort of traditional, more philanthropic activity that a company might support a charitable organisation or initiative because it feels it's the right thing to do, or because there are interests of stakeholders like employees or customers or consumers feel that organisation ought to be responding to a particular initiative. So they tend to be sort of one-off, short-term activities done, as I say, because it's the right thing to do. Then where a lot of community contributions focus now is on the second stream, which is community investment, where it's much more strategic, much more long-term, where the company has identified issues that are relevant to it and its business, and is partnering with organisations in the community to address those issues. And then the third element, which does have much more of a, I guess, business link, is what we term commercial initiatives in the community. And this is activities that might be done through the commercial side of the business, but also have a community benefit, so things like cause-related marketing and so forth. So it can have a business link, but the core of it is, as you say, what companies do over and above their day-to-day business to benefit wider society.
The LBG model has quite a number of elements it really addresses. As you already were mentioning, it looks at what the business actually contributes. So the input side in terms of cash donations, in-kind donations, even the management time. It also looks at what the outputs that these activities produce, so what really happens, how many people participate, how many people are affected. It also looks at the impact side of what really happens, as well as it measures the business benefits and even the impacts on the participating or partnering charitable organizations. It's really it's a wide wide number of things that it allows business to measure and kind of organize the data of. And it's not very easy, but I see the LBG model as being really practical about it and really giving the right guidance for business to actually go through these steps and measure these inputs. I think the most difficult part and the most rare tool to find when we were actually looking for tools is tools that are able to capture the social impacts of business. So the impacts that business has on society, on people, on communities where they operate. And there are not many tools that are very practical about it. There are some, that suggest long field studies that might not be so feasible for business. And the social impact seems to be much more difficult to capture compared to environmental impacts, where the indicators and the data is much more, say, direct and much more easily capturable. So how does the LBG model really deal with this issue of, the difficulty of capturing social impact?
I mean, I think just to refer back to something I said earlier, is that LBG is a framework that was developed by businesses for businesses. So it's actually the LBG network has evolved the model itself with our support at Corporate Citizenship. So it's actually practitioners, community investment, CSR managers around the world who have developed the tool and the processes through their experience. And in terms of social impact, as you say, it's always the most challenging area. Is about enabling community investment managers or CSR managers to look at the activities that they deliver and the impacts they might achieve in a number of core impact areas. So the sorts of impacts that we look at through the framework, we look at firstly impacts on people, and we found that across the whole range of potential activities that a company might support in the community, whether it's an education program, whether it's an environmental program, whether it's a health-related activity, all of those, when they relate to people, tend to impact people in one or more of three ways. And those are, they can impact people in terms of behavior or attitude, enabling people to change their behavior in positive ways. It might be about taking more exercise, eating more healthily. It might be about being more environmentally aware. So there's an area around behavior change. The second area is around skills and personal effectiveness. So a lot of community investment activities will enable people to develop new skills or capabilities that they hadn't otherwise had before, whether that's sort of, if you like, traditional kind of educational type activity, academic skills, or whether it's sort of softer skills around people's own kind of self-confidence and so on. And the third area is around people's just general well-being or quality of life. And we found we can look at across a whole range of community activities, which in some respects might seem very different and very disparate, and actually identify how each one is impacting in those areas. So companies using the framework can then be able to look across their portfolio of activities and get an assessment of the degree to which they're helping people develop skills, change behavior, or improve their general well-being. And it's been a huge benefit to businesses to be able to capture and be able to kind of understand and communicate what they're achieving across those areas. But it doesn't just look at the type of impact that's being achieved, it also looks at the depth of impact, because we understand that every community activity is different, and some activities are designed to have, say, a broad reach, but have kind of a limited impact on the beneficiary, and others are much more long-term and have much more transformational impact. So we don't just look at the depth of impact and type of impact, we also look at the depth of impact, and we have a simple scale of connection, as I say, a sort of a light touch understanding, an improvement where someone has actually been able to see a substantive change in their circumstances, and then a transformation, which is actually a long-term sustained change. And so by looking at those two, through those two lenses, both the type of impact and the depth of impact, companies are able to much better understand the difference that they're making. And we don't just look at the impacts on people, we also look at the impacts on the organizations that companies work within the community, and we have various indicators around capacity building, around whether working with the company has enabled charity organizations or community organizations or schools to deliver new or better services, whether they've been able to take on more staff or more volunteers, whether they've been able to reach more people, and so forth. So looking at across in those areas, helping companies to focus on those broad impact areas has really benefited them, enabling them to understand what previously was possibly quite a confusing set of potential impacts.
It's not easy for a lot of companies that start thinking about the impacts that they have or may have on society to understand what impact really is. They're more used to talking about the impacts on their own business, but what is your experience? How easy or how difficult, and how do companies really approach this question of understanding and say calculating or quantifying this impact on community using the three levels that you mentioned?
The one thing that companies are aware of, and that the LBG network recognises, is that you can't measure everything. What the framework enables a company to do is to apply the model at pace that works for the organization and also at a pace, at stages that work for the particular activities. So there may be some activities that a company is investing in for over the longer term where they want to do some long-term assessment, and there may be other of those sort of shorter-term connection type activities where it's about doing some sort of simple light touch assessment. And so what we found is that actually impact measurement starts by asking some simple questions. Asking the organizations that the company works with or the individuals that benefit from those organizations some simple questions about what has changed as a result of the company's involvement. And it can achieve some really quite incredible results and deliver some really helpful management information to enable the company to establish that whether and to what degree it is making a difference.
So if we continue on this question of social impact and what the LBG model can help companies really measure, there are a number of thematic areas that the LBG model say provides as inspiration of what kind of impacts or what kind of issues a community investment might affect. What is kind of the reasoning behind choosing some of these issues, and is there a possibility to expand that list to, I don't know, other issues such as anti-corruption or things like that?
Well, yeah, we don't have, the LBG framework doesn't have a finite list. It doesn't say, well, this is the only kind of sorts of activity that counts. What we found is it's a broad-based framework that can apply to pretty much any activity that a company is supporting in the community. I mean, the key thing is that the activities are there to broadly recognized as delivering public benefit. So broadly will be activities that are delivered by registered charities or by schools, universities, hospitals, and so forth. And so we found that it's not limited by the type of activity a company might support. What we found is most of those activities can be translated into the LBG framework.
But another aspect of it that is actually really interesting is the way that it also helps the company to understand the impact on the business itself or on the business value that these community investments might have had. And this is, a very, I would say, powerful and a very useful feature for majority of the companies that, are being questioned internally on the spending that they actually make on, sustainability or corporate social responsibility or community investments. So how does the LBG model really conceptualize this business benefits and the business impact, and for what purpose?
I mean, should start by saying, the business benefit of community investment is probably the most challenging aspect of measurement. There isn't always a direct link between what a company does to support the community and sort of the broader performance of the business, certainly on terms of the bottom line. However, through the LBG network, members companies have identified, using a stakeholder-led approach, have identified ways in which particular types of activity can be assessed in terms of a return to the business. Perhaps one of the most effective areas that companies have developed is around the employee proposition and how an effective community investment plan program, whether through direct kind of employee engagement through volunteering or fundraising activities, or by simply employees being aware of the activity that the company supports in the community, can improve performance. So, for example, the LBG framework in terms of employee volunteers has developed a very robust assessment tool to help companies understand how involvement in employee volunteering activities both kind of has a personal benefit for the volunteers involved in helping them deliver or develop new skills or effectiveness in other areas, but also how that involvement has changes or improves their outlook on the company and enables them to do their jobs more effectively. And so the human resources benefits of community investment is an area of significant strength. Other types of activity and other types of business benefit do depend a lot on the activity in question. For example, a direct financial return has been measured very effectively by companies through cause-related marketing activities and so forth, where tying the community contributions to particular products has delivered a direct impact on the company's bottom line.
One thing that companies really appreciate is when the tool actually gives them an opportunity to benchmark themselves or compare themselves to other companies or industries or national averages. And the LBG model as well, for its members, it offers an opportunity of benchmarking. Could you tell us a little bit more about how that works and what does that really entail?
Companies that engage in the network agree to, well, get certain sort of benefits and agree to certain responsibilities through being part of the network. And one of the responsibilities is to report headline information on their overall contributions, their outputs and their impacts over the previous reporting year. And we do an annual benchmarking exercise and are able to report back to companies the results of that so that they can compare against each other, against sector norms, and also against group-wide performance. And just to give you a flavour, in the last year's benchmarking exercise across the LBG network, there was $3.3 billion of contributions made by companies in the network. So a really significant sum going out into the community. And what companies are able to do then is to drill into that information and understand how does their contribution compare to others. So it might be, I mean, are we at relevant norms across the network last year? The average percent of pre-tax profit contributed by companies was 1%. So a company can look at their own performance and see, are they making contributions that are of a comparable nature to other companies? Over 200,000 organisations were supported and 65 million individuals were reached. And by looking at how companies have reported data and understand what individual companies have reached through their contributions, companies can begin to assess, well, to the degree to which they are in line with or behind or ahead of general performance levels. And also back onto the impacts question, they can also look at to see how the degree to which companies are able to improve individual beneficiaries, the organisations they work with, or the employees. I mean, we found last year that of those employees that were involved in community activity, 41% were assessed to have improved their direct job-related skills. So a real kind of, a really important piece of information for the community manager to take back to their management.
I assume that since LBG model is also a network, it also supports some kind of peer learning or, even common projects between the companies themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So it is, as you say, a peer network. So companies don't just take the model and run with it, if you like. Each company that joins the network has support from us at Corporate Citizenship to help them apply the framework. But also on top of that, there are regular webinars on all aspects of the model, whether that's on the sort of measurement technicalities of how to measure inputs, outputs, or impacts, or it might be, more broader topics around perhaps engaging employee volunteers, about developing more strategic community investments, or it might be on some of those topics I touched on earlier around shared value or social innovation and its relevance to community investment. So companies can tap in to not just our knowledge, but each other's knowledge and learn from each other, discuss with each other, and come up with shared solutions. And I've always been incredibly encouraged by the willingness of companies that are in the network to share their experiences and to support each other to improve community investment generally, because ultimately they're all facing the same challenge of trying to make the best use, achieve the best impact with the resources that they have, and so working together has been a huge advantage to them.
When we talk about the LBG, currently it explicitly addresses the community investments that are outside of direct business operations or the core business of any company. However, when you think about the the employees that the businesses has, the products that it purchases from local communities. Some of the biggest impacts that business may have in terms of, community development might actually come through the direct business operations. Do you see an opportunity or a way that the LBG model can help companies also understand the impact that they have on communities through direct business operations and not only the charitable or community investments that are outside?
Yes, absolutely. While, as you say, LBG explicitly, in terms of the network, focuses on companies' voluntary contributions to community activities, the social impact framework can be applied to direct business operations. In fact, has been by companies. Just recently, we've completed a study with a number of member companies who were delivering shared value or social innovation projects, so where they were explicitly delivering products or services or explicitly working with particular communities in their supply chain through their direct business operations, but actually using the social impact element of the LBG framework to understand the difference they're making to the communities through those particular activities. However, in terms of how the network is currently focused, it is still focused on the community contributions, so that there can be a like-for-like comparison across companies.
And this is especially important, I think, for the benchmarking feature of the LBG community.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crucial that companies who are comparing know that they are they're comparing like for like.
It's not only the creation of the positive impact, but it's also sometimes by avoiding negative impact, by avoiding to do something wrong, when it relates to child labor or things like that. Do you see a way to also incorporate this kind of avoidance of risks or avoidance of negative impacts into the model?
Currently, obviously, what LBG is focused on is where companies are trying and working towards making a specific positive impact or delivering public benefit by working with charitable or community organizations. So the aim there is implicit that it would ideally be a positive impact. So it doesn't then currently look at kind of what are the wider impacts of the business through its core operations. I'm not sure that would be, as I say, in terms of the LBG framework, in terms of a community investment a measurement tool, it wouldn't necessarily be quite the right fit as yet.
I think we're approaching towards the end of our interview, but I would like to ask you one more question. When you really start thinking about, the future vision for 2030, what would you like to see happen and the LBG model and the LBG community contribute towards?
Well, I mean, the SDGs is obviously something that is very important, across the board in terms of sustainable business, and a lot of companies within the LBG network are mapping their community investment activities to the SDGs, and so we're already looking at how community investment can help contribute towards that, and how LBG can enable companies to better understand it. So well, basically, we look to a world where every business measures its community investment and shares that information in an open, transparent and consistent way. And while we're delighted that we work with 220 companies around the world, we would love there to be a much wider uptake and reporting of community investment, so the stakeholders to whom this is important can see and understand what companies are doing in the community and understand what difference it makes. And while we know through the LBG network that companies have pioneering impact measurement, it's still not as widespread as we would like, and so being able for companies to better and more simply understand and assess their impacts and to report that would be a huge benefit from our perspective.
Thank you very much for joining us here today and for sharing all these wonderful insights and telling our listeners as well and attendees more about the LBG model and what it can do for them. Thank you for joining us today. I invite all the listeners to actually have a look at the LBG model showcase and a few links we will most probably provide in the virtual launch show floor. And thank you, Jon.
Well, thank you, Adele. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you. Bye.